In the lead-up to critical elections, Donald Trump finds himself in the spotlight, not only for his rhetoric and policy promises, but increasingly for the waning enthusiasm among his supporters. His rallies, once characterized by fervent crowds and unwavering support, now reveal a more subdued atmosphere. With Vice President Kamala Harris drawing larger, more energetic audiences and focusing on policies that resonate with a broader demographic, Trump's recent speeches have notably been marked by cognitive glitches and exhausting attempts to rally a diminishing base. Even as he dismisses reports of thinning crowds, the reality of supporters walking out mid-speech tells a different story, underscoring potential voter fatigue and a changing political landscape. In a recent North Carolina rally, Trump's claims of packed, loyal audiences starkly contrasted with the visible exodus occurring just as he spoke. Statements like, "Nobody leaves early," and "We never have an empty seat," now stand at odds with the footage of attendees heading for the exits, creating a disconnect between Trump's messaging and the visible reality. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris's appearances have seen record-breaking attendance numbers, with her speeches drawing tens of thousands and centering on themes of democracy, unity, and economic security. These contrasting scenes raise questions about Trump's resonance with voters and whether his approach is pushing away the very supporters he seeks to retain. 1. The evolution of Trump's rally rhetoric, from exhilaration to exhaustion. Since his initial run for office, Trump's rallies have often been viewed as electrifying events, with devoted crowds chanting familiar slogans and reinforcing a sense of loyalty. His speeches, usually brimming with personal anecdotes and hyperbolic claims, created a spectacle that captured media and public attention. However, recent rallies have shown signs of faltering energy, with Trump himself appearing visibly fatigued. Observers have noted instances where he drifts off topic, interjects odd asides, or repeats points in a seemingly unscripted, glitchy fashion. One example from a North Carolina rally saw Trump referring to his uncle, John G. Trump, a former MIT professor, as evidence of his own intellectual prowess. "I had an uncle who worked at MIT for 41 years, he stated, adding, "It's something in my blood." The anecdote, intended to portray him as uniquely intelligent, instead came across as a forced, out-of-context attempt to reassure his audience of his capability. This pattern raises questions about Trump's ability to maintain a coherent message, with detractors noting how these cognitive stumbles are increasingly undermining his credibility. Unlike Harris, whose speeches have maintained a clear, focused direction, Trump's words often devolve into fragmented narratives that lack clarity and cohesion. As he discusses everything from voter fraud to personal grievances, the political impact of his rhetoric appears to be weakening. 2. Kamala Harris's policy-driven approach, an energized alternative. While Trump's rallies exhibit signs of decline, Vice President Kamala Harris is bringing a renewed sense of purpose to her events. During a recent rally in Raleigh, North Carolina, she addressed an enthusiastic crowd of 20,000, emphasizing the importance of democracy and promising concrete economic reforms. Her message focuses on specific policies aimed at middle and working-class families, such as reducing living costs, enacting a federal ban on price gouging, and offering tax cuts to small businesses. This agenda resonates with an electorate concerned with tangible solutions, contrasting starkly with Trump's grievance-filled discourse. Harris's emphasis on actionable plans, rather than inflammatory rhetoric, offers a stark contrast to Trump's rally style, where attacks on opponents and accusations of fraud dominate. Her approach, described by supporters as hope-driven, seeks to inspire rather than incite. This tone is particularly evident in her statements about bringing dignity back to the presidency, a sentiment that appeals to voters weary of division. As she emphasizes working toward affordable housing, senior care, and healthcare reform, Harris positions herself as a candidate with a vision for all Americans, creating a distinct contrast to Trump's polarizing message. 3. Audience reactions and symbolic shifts. The disparity between Trump's and Harris's audiences underscores a symbolic shift within the political landscape. At Trump's North Carolina rally, Footage captured attendees leaving as he assured the crowd that nobody leaves early. This contradiction has become emblematic of a wider issue. While Trump attempts to project strength and popularity, his audiences are showing signs of fatigue. These dwindling crowds and walkouts could reflect disenchantment among his supporters, particularly those who feel the focus has shifted from their needs to his personal grievances. Meanwhile, Harris's audiences have been enthusiastic and growing. Her speeches often include moments where attendees interrupt with cheers and applause, contrasting with Trump's more subdued reactions. These engagements reflect a public more receptive to her platform of economic security and unity, as opposed to Trump's self-referential and grievance-laden approach. Harris's supporters, who appear energized and hopeful, represent a demographic increasingly drawn to her future-focused message. For media narratives and propaganda, the battle of the Cheerins. Media coverage of both Trump and Harris reveals contrasting narratives, especially within networks like Fox News, where the framing of Trump's messages often borders on the glorified. During his rallies, Cheerins on Fox have painted him as a beacon of hope, with messages like Trump's message of hope for America and Trump leads us into a golden age. Such cheer-ins contrast sharply with the content of Trump's speeches, which often center on grievances and perceived wrongs against him. In contrast, Fox News has presented Harris in a negative light, despite the positive reception of her messages. Cheer-ins for her rallies have included Kamala pushes fear in closing message and Kamala's speech fails to inspire. These portrayals diverge significantly from her actual statements, which emphasize unity and policies for working families. This disparity in coverage suggests a concerted effort to shape public perception in favor of Trump, despite observable evidence of his struggles to maintain public interest. This divergence in media treatment highlights a broader issue in American politics: the impact of partisan media on public opinion. For audiences primarily receiving their information from Fox News, Trump remains an infallible figure, while Harris's messages are distorted to convey negativity. This reality complicates the public's ability to receive unbiased information, contributing to a polarized understanding of the candidates. 5. The broader implications of Trump's rhetoric and Harris's counterpoint. Trump's recent speeches have been marked by an increasingly defensive posture, often including assertions of personal victimization. Statements like, "I am not Hitler," and remarks about being unfairly persecuted paint him as embattled, rather than empowered, diminishing the image of strength he once projected. This rhetorical shift may alienate voters who once saw him as a formidable figure. In contrast, Harris's messages about collective empowerment and future-oriented policies seem to resonate more with the public looking for stability. A recent editorial from the Las Vegas Sun highlighted concerns about Trump's cognitive state, suggesting that his rhetorical disarray reflects a deeper issue. Additionally, Fortune magazine published a piece signed by dozens of CEOs endorsing Harris, citing her policy-driven focus as a reason for their support. This endorsement underscores the appeal of her pragmatic approach over Trump's grievances, suggesting a shift among even traditionally conservative business leaders. The landscape of American politics is shifting, and Trump's dwindling rally numbers and disengaged audience reflect this change. His reliance on grievance-driven speeches, combined with visible lapses in coherence, has created a noticeable gap between his message and his supporters' needs. As audiences leave his rallies mid-speech, it's evident that the once vibrant energy surrounding his campaign has begun to wane, raising questions about his ability to lead and inspire in a meaningful way. In contrast, Kamala Harris's events are marked by enthusiasm and hope. Her policy-centered approach, focusing on tangible changes for working families, has garnered positive attention and increasing support. The difference between Trump's rhetoric of self-focus and Harris's inclusive message of locking arms to achieve progress highlights a critical juncture in American politics. As both candidates continue their campaigns, the upcoming elections may reveal whether voters prefer Trump's familiar but dwindling appeal or Harris's promise of renewed direction and stability.